Hey
We're, s-
there.
we're live now. We're live right away. I don't know how I started this stream.
Okay, all right, we're already on. All right, well, all right,
I
that's
don't
cool.
even know how I did that, but hey, we started.
All right,
Um,
can you hear me? You hear everything
well,
all right?
yeah, but it's okay because that's how I like to do it, and I'm glad you're here. You can still get ready and everything. I could put you in the back if you want to hold on, and I could just talk.
Um, I mean, I'm basically ready.
Awesome. Okay, peace, everyone. Peace. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. Namaste. Jumbo. Ashe. Duantur, Shalom, all the greetings of love and light to the darkest minds of the light. I am Napah Shadah, and I don't even know how I started the stream, family, but we have a wonderful guest today. Ed Dodge, he's an author, he's a philosopher. We're going to talk about some of his work. We're going to talk about the feminine in worship. We're going to talk about consciousness, a lot of good stuff, and we're just going to kick back and let you get to know him. I'm so excited to talk to him. Ed, thank you for being here.
Hi,
Um,
Napah. It's great to be here with you. It's super fun. It's been a while since we spoke, so it's great to be here. And so thanks for being on this channel.
awesome. So, Ed, where should we begin? I see you've got a depiction of that is don't tell me. It's Kali.
Yes, it's Kali. Kali
Kali.
Ma. Oh, you can't see my name. The name tag is blocking over. Shiva is down there
Oh
lying down.
wow. Okay. So can we start with just talking first about your work, and then we can go into the deities and the God, the femininity of God. Talk to us about your work. What have you been working on as far as your research and your books?
All right, well, this is my book right here. It's available now. History of the Goddess from the Ice Age of the Bible came out, I don't know, 2 years ago, 2021 or something. And this book was predicated on when I learned about Asherah, that scholars are talking about Asherah, the Canaanite goddess in the Old Testament. That they're saying that she was the wife of God, and that alone blew my mind so powerfully that I had to go find out what this was all about, because it didn't jibe with anything I'd ever learned in church growing up. So a little bit about myself. This is not my profession. I work professionally in renewable energy and tech stuff.
Okay.
I got into this. I sort of fell into this story, and I was working on something else. I was actually studying cannabis in the Bible, and I was studying how I was working in the cannabis industry, and I was been studying cannabis history for a long time, because both the hemp fibers and the drugs go back to the dawn of the Neolithic, and they're both very important. The fibers are incredibly important. They're the strongest fibers. So all throughout history, hemp fibers that are illegal now, cannabis sativa, were the backbone of shipbuilding, or the backbone of building strong ropes or bowstrings, all the way up into the Americas, up until the founding fathers. They couldn't get enough cannabis. So that actually, I learned that when I was in high school. I was a high school pothead, and I learned that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were growing all this hemp, and that the government was lying to us about it. And that sparked a curiosity for me about why are they lying to us about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Anyway, I won't digress into all that stuff. I was looking for a story to write in the Bible, and my friend Chris Bennett is a longtime cannabis writer. So he'd been writing about cannabis in the Bible for a long time, and this would be of interest to you guys, because there's 5 verses where cannabis is mentioned in the Old Testament, but it's mistranslated as a different plant. And so we don't see it in the English text. And the most important one is that it's an ingredient in Moses' holy anointing oil. So there's 5 ingredients. It's olive oil, cinnamon, myrrh, cassia, and then this other ingredient which gets either mistranslated as either aromatic cane or as calamus, which is a different plant, depending on which translation you're reading. But scholars have long recognized it doesn't really make sense. Aromatic cane doesn't make any sense, and calamus kind of doesn't really work. If you actually make this oil with calamus, it's totally toxic, because it's really potent. But if you make it with cannabis, it's really powerful oil. And so people have recognized this translation now, and there's 4 other verses also in the Song of Songs. It's mentioned as twice as a burnt offering in the temple, and then also mentioned as a trade good. So those are the 5 verses. But this one about the holy anointing oil is incredibly important. So I wanted to understand. I was like, well, if cannabis was there as an ingredient in the holy anointing oil and was obviously sacred to Moses, right, but it's not sacred later on, like later on it's not part of Jewish traditions, right? So at some point they threw it out. At some point they got rid of it. So that was the question I was initially digging into. I was like, all right, at some point in history, they got rid of the stuff. At some point they made a change. They said one day it was good, another day was bad. I wanted to find out. And that was when I stumbled into the whole thing about Asherah and the scholars saying that God had a wife, which like didn't jive with anything I'd ever known. And so I was like, you know what? I bet you they got thrown out together. I bet you the mother goddess and the cannabis got thrown out together. And that, in fact, turned out to be exactly what was going on.
Wow.
And so, long story short.
At the same time? You mean sure. Thrown out at the same time? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'll just long story short it, which is as I dug into like the history of what's going on in the Old Testament, just tried to put the timeline together. What we really see is that throughout the entire, that they start out as pagans, right? The Israelites are polytheistic and they become monotheistic. And so basically, we're told that they were Jews in the first temple, they were monotheists in the first temple. That actually turned out to not be correct. That the history is that the whole first temple is totally pagan. They're totally polytheistic. They totally have mother goddess, El, and the God of the Bible is 2 separate gods still. El and Yahweh are 2 separate gods. That's why we have 2 words for God, the Lord and Elohim. It's because they're originally 2 separate gods. El is a different god than Yahweh. And the entire first temple period, they're still pagans. They're doing all this pagan stuff, sex and drugs in the temple. And then they have a reformation. They have a big fight about it. And they're fighting about it the entire time from like the time from the 9th century all the way for like 400 years. They're fighting about this stuff. But they're still fighting about it when the temple is destroyed and they get sent into exile. They were still pagan. They only become Jews in the second temple. During the exile, that's when they put it all together. And that's when, and so the biggest step, the final most climactic step in the transition from paganism to monotheism was the divorce of the mother goddess and throwing out the mother goddess. And then they like write her completely out of the story. And the Hebrew language doesn't even have a word for goddess. Like they eliminate the concept of the feminine divine. So I'll stop there.
Oh, you sure? You're going to come up for air? That was so much information. Oh, wow. You know what? I told you I want to bring you on more than once. And now you.
Yeah, no. So I'm working on a new book. So the first book I wrote, this one I'm like, is like an exploration. And I'm like learning it all as I was writing it. And I like didn't really know what I was getting into. And there's like, there was no really editing or really nobody was like helping me with it. So it's like, I'll admit it's a little bit sloppy, like in some of the details, and which is why I'm working on a follow-up book, which is going to be much more strongly argued, which is really I'm going to make the argument, and I would love to come on your guys' channel now. I've been learning more about the whole channel you guys got. Like I want to make the case that the God of the Bible has a mother, that she came first, she's right there in the Bible, and that they divorce her and get rid of her, but that frankly we need to get her back to bring an ecological civilization in the 21st century.
Wow. Ecological civilization. We have to bring the mother back. Do you hear this, audience? Do you hear this? That's the vibrant. You know what? I think it's because we're going to talk about consciousness too. I got to tie it in. But it's like you hear collective consciousness used very loosely, but it is, I call it the universal mind of God. There's something in all of us that's waking up saying, wait a minute, the mother 100%. Goddess. So talk to us a little bit, elaborate on that, how it's just like something innate or something beyond just our conscious thought. I don't want to just say subconscious, but.
Well, we could talk about the modern philosophy stuff too, because like, so one thing I've learned in digging into like all this material, which is that this, all right, so I had 2 big surprises. One was that God had a wife, right? That was my first surprise. I was like, the scholars think that God, like, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. It doesn't even like make sense to my brain how God could have a wife. Like it hurts my brain.
Then it does make sense. It did make sense because you're programmed, right?
Because I'm programmed that way, right? It took a reprogramming to refigure it out. But secondly, what blew me away was that the scholars like don't seem to care. They're like, God had a wife. Aren't you religious people a bunch of dumbasses? Right. And like, and that's all they say about it. They like don't dig into the story at all. They're completely unconcerned with really trying to like unearthed what it meant that God had a wife and they got rid of her. I'm like, this is like one of the most important questions I've ever heard in my entire life.
Right.
That question alone, regardless of where you come out on the outcome, that question alone is really, I think, really important, really profound. God having a wife, like that, those words alone is worthy of a major, big discussion. And the scholars in academia, they don't give a shit. They could care less. And I'll tell you why. Because their whole methodology in academia, and this is the higher level academia you go, the more this becomes true, is that it's scientific materialism. They view the world as a presupposition as materialism. And they start from the starting point, say, all spirituality is BS. It's all an illusion. And all the world can be reduced down to math and physics and chemistry and evolution and natural mechanistic processes. And there is not only no God, but no soul and no free will. And this is like all the leading philosophers today. If you listen to it, all the leading voices coming out of the Ivy League, all the leading intellectuals, they're all saying the same thing: no God, no soul, no free will. All the liberals, all the lefty, right? You know, that the Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, all this whole crowd of modern day atheists. They're all coming from the same perspective, which is scientific materialism. That's their worldview.
Yeah. And they're saying, prove it to me. Show me in the natural world. And
they will only accept evidence that is materialist, that is like that you can touch and feel and you can demonstrate the mechanistic thing. So anything that has a non-material origin, they just rule it out altogether and call it an illusion or call it superstition. And that's how they frame the argument. And so they always win the argument when they frame it that way, when they're arguing with religious people. And so we've got these two competing claims of truth, two competing authorities over truth. You've got religious orthodoxy, which was the old orthodoxy of truth, and they had authority, like the authority to tell people what to do, right? Against their will. For like 1,500 years, the church had authority in the West, right? Whether it was the Catholic or the Protestant church. They were the ones who told you what the truth is about, the cosmology of the universe.
Exactly.
And then we get into the Enlightenment a couple hundred years ago, and scientific materialism starts out first as a method in the lab, like Galileo starts it, but that's just for engineering, and it's perfectly fine as engineering, like that's what you want to do for engineering. But it becomes a philosophy and a worldview in the 1800s, starting with the French Revolution and then going through Marxism and Maoism. And Karl Marx and Mao are very explicitly materialists. Like that's very core to the entire Marxist socialist worldview, is that they're hostile to religion and they want to get rid of it and run everything with a rationalized, scientific, technocratic, that kind of thing.
Right. It's all about, and they were when you say very hostile, you're talking about communism. Mao, a lot of lives were taken if you even decided to practice anything spiritual. So yes.
Well, yeah, they raided Tibet and they destroyed the monasteries and and in some cases, some of this old stuff had gotten, long in the tooth and maybe needs a reformation. Nonetheless, they're explicitly hostile to spirituality as a whole. And so now for the last 200 years, we've been having this debate in the West, and the scientists have been winning, right? In the court of public opinion, they keep winning. But they've been arguing with orthodoxy. They've been arguing with, and the old orthodoxy has they can't deviate too far from orthodoxy, right? A Christian, if you're a Christian apologist, you got to stick to the book, right? You can't go deviating all the place.
Exactly.
So the scientists keep winning against the orthodoxy, but when you take the science to a maximalist philosophy, it starts to fall apart and really doesn't really work very well, which is why politically ends up in all these communist disasters every single time. It's been a mass murderous fiasco. Because they have no spirituality. So they I want to be a part of something different. Because I feel like I'm listening to an argument between flat earthers on one hand and geocentrists on the other. Geocentrists being the people that they realized the earth was round, in the ancient Greece, Socrates, Plato, 500 BC. They knew the earth was round, but they thought the sun was rotating around the earth. And they thought that for the next 2,000 years.
So what do you think? So you're against the idea of geocentricism?
Well, yeah, we're heliocentrists. Yeah, we rotate around the sun, and it took a long time for people. Thing is, people pointed it out pretty early on that the orbital patterns didn't work. That the geocentrist model didn't actually correctly predict where the planets were going.
Yeah.
But those guys had the authority, and so anyone who claimed otherwise, that anything other than geocentrism, was burned at the stake. If in the Middle Ages, if you said, the Earth revolves around the sun, that's heresy. They would literally murder you.
Yeah, you'd be tortured to death.
Yeah, exactly. So, the authority can be wrong. The scientific authority can be totally wrong. And in the history of science, we look at decade after decade after decade when conventional wisdom in science is completely wrong. If you go back to 100 years ago, in the 1920s, what were all of our leading academics saying? All the university presidents at all of our most esteemed institutions, you know what they were teaching? Scientific racism. They're all teaching that white people were scientifically superior to black people, and you couldn't get any of them to admit otherwise. Not one of them. From Cornell, Harvard, MIT, they would all say, preaching from the same book. But eventually, people took that entire field and threw it in the garbage because they recognized it was a bunch of crap. And the same thing's going to happen.
Talk to you about because I want to talk to you about what you said about burning at the stake and torture. Let's go talk about the witch hunts, and let's kind of move into, if people weren't doing conventional science back then, I guess, if they were doing, especially women, if they were doing things that seemed like against God, as you said, heresy, the women were taken and burnt at the stake. Do you address any of that, and burnt at the stake or tortured? Do you address any of that in your book or in your research?
Well, that's not the time period of my book, but it is definitely part of the same story. There's no question about it. And the roots of it are in my book, because like potion making was women's business. All the plant drugs, everything about sex and drugs was like women's business.
Right.
In the ancient world, they were in charge of all of it, all the plants, all mixing up all the plant potions. That was all 100%. It was always women's business. Not to say no men participated, but basically it's women's business. And in the matriarchal cultures, women are also in charge of sex too. Like that's a big part of the story. Is a transition from matriarchy to patriarchy, because the family lines are built around the mothers, so the women are in charge of the whole sex thing. But all that gets taken away, and so like in this era of pure monotheism, where they get rid of the divine mother, a lot of that has to do with making women submit to men and forcing women into a submissive role. And we're taught that just goes back forever, but actually that's totally not true at all. Like that's also a big part of this whole story, is that women were only forced into submission in the Bronze Age. Prior to the Bronze Age, which is 5,000 years ago.
Dates like 5,000 years ago, you said?
Yeah. Like patriarchy follows kingship, and kingship is not that old in the grand scheme of things.
I love it. Keep it up. Keep coming. Listen
like we've got 250,000 years that Homo sapiens have been around, and 50,000 years that we've been around doing like observable culture and cave paintings and Venus figurines and art and stuff. And so there's no evidence of like domination, slavery, warfare. I mean, there's always fighting, right? But there's no like organized domination societies in those time periods. It's all like tribal, clan-based.
And that's matriarchal.
And you build the families around the mother, because that's the default of humanity. Because you want to build the family lines around the father, you've got to control the women's sex lives. You have to police the women completely. Make sure the daughters remain virgins and the wives remain monogamous, even if the men are not.
Talk to us more about that, because I want the audience to know. I've picked your brain, and this is so awesome. Why was it that way? Why did they want to control the women, saying you have to be virgins, you can't have more than one husband? Can you talk on that?
To control for paternity. Otherwise, you don't know who the baby daddy is. It's that simple. And they didn't track baby daddies. And that was the thing, was that like, and this is still true among indigenous tribes and Native Americans. I learned this from Native Americans, is where I kind of put this piece of it together. The modern day Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee, are like still like this. And they build their families around the mothers. And so it literally, like the sperm donor is literally anonymous. So the sperm donor, the husband, and the father figure can be three separate men. Right. And in the family, so there's two parts of it. It's also how the marriages are structured. So you get the matrilineal bloodlines, but also what they call matrilocal marriages. That means when you get married, the man goes and lives with the woman's family, as opposed to the woman going and live with the man's family. So when the women all stay together, and this is how most indigenous tribes are and always have been. Um, when they get married, the girl never leaves her house, right? She still stays in her same home with her mother and grandma and her aunties and her sisters, and they all stay together. They collectively raise the children, and the men kind of come and go. The men that they like, they keep them around. The men that are no good, they kind of kick them out. And a divorce is totally painless for a woman because she stays home. She keeps the baby. All the wealth is owned by the women. They don't just tend the hearth and home, they own the hearth and home. The house is owned by the women. The men, when they get married, they come and live at the woman's house.
And you're
And
talking
if
about
that
Native
man,
Americans. You're saying
what's
Native
that?
Americans.
Native Americans, yeah.
And it's because I want these people. We have a lot of people out here who follow our shows, and they claim to be Native Americans. And there's a lot of misogyny, a lot of male stuff going on. So I want you to keep on going.
All right, so this does not mean emasculated men. I also want to make this clear too.
Exactly.
Matriarchies do not emasculate the men. They don't want emasculated men. They want strong men that can still protect them. They just want those men to be like kind and not assholes, right?
Thank you. See, you got to repeat that. We did that 3 times. I got to do that. Say it again. Right. We don't want emasculated men in matriarchy. Correct?
Right. They want the men to be strong and warriors and go protect the women because the women are still at the house. You know, like you're still going to be like the men are still stronger. And because what men bring is mobility. The women are kind of stay put because like they got the babies. Yes. They're kind of like they can't. They're not as mobile. But men are mobile. That's what we bring to the table. We're strong and we're mobile. We can go out. We can leave for months at a time. Even go on a trade mission. Go on a warfare. Go bring back some prize. You know. Go hunt a woolly mammoth and bring, whatever,
protect us
and protect. And that's what men do. So women sacrifice their bodies to make children and lactating and all that stuff. And men sacrifice their bodies to do the dangerous work and outside the house. And it works. Like that's a working system.
Exactly.
And so in tribal cultures where the women all stay together, the women have sexual freedom. They're not obligated to monogamy. You can choose to be monogamous, but you're not obligated to it. It's when and this was how just the default of how humans are structured.
Give me a second. I love it. I don't want to stop your flow, but we're talking about the Native Americans of today. But what would we also say that we could find evidence of that in even the Israelite culture of ancient times? The Israel.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, though this is a big part of the argument I'm making is that we can observe the transition from matriarchal to patriarchal families across the and this is why I want to come on with your crew and go through the whole Bible study because Abraham and Sarah have a matriarchal marriage, and so do Jacob and Leah and Rachel. The earliest, it's in the oldest parts of the story. That's how we know these stories are old, is because they're coming from the second millennium in the Bronze Age, where matriarchal and patriarchal families are coexisting. Because what happens is in the Bronze Age, they invent weapons. And that gives a decisive advantage to brutal men who can start raiding and plundering and taking women as slaves.
And I want to talk to you about that. I learned this from you. I've shared it in some of my teachings. Who were the first slaves? Were men slaves?
It was totally women, yeah. I learned this from feminist histories.
I see you out there. I love you, everybody.
This book, this is a really good feminist history by Gerda Lerner. She's an academic. But she was the one who made the point to me that it's, the women were the first slaves. In fact, it took many centuries before they even figured out how to enslave men because men are hard. It's like, A, they're hard to keep under control, and B, you need something for them to do. Otherwise, it's easier just to kill them on the spot.
Before there were weapons, it was almost impossible to have men as in captivity. So
you couldn't keep unless it was like 100-to-1 advantages. Like one group of men against another group of men. When you just have clubs and spears, it's like a pretty much even match. So like nobody can really dominate. But once one group had bronze weapons along with horses and chariots, and the other group didn't have bronze weapons and horses and chariots, then you could start enslaving people. But it starts with just the women, because what you do is you kidnap the babies and or impregnate the women, and then the women just are going to be pretty docile in that.
Ed, this information right here blows so much out of the water. We have had this discussion about a part of Deuteronomy where it says, if you see a beautiful woman, you can take her, have sex with her. About the captives when they
Yeah,
were.
yeah, no, yeah, they legalized all that.
So yeah, so you
Right, and
just.
so these warrior groups start setting up shop right around the time that Bible says is the beginning of creation, around 4000 BC. Like that's when these folks, they call them the Indo-European invaders, and that's when they start raiding these Neolithic settlements that had become quite prosperous. Like the cities in Mesopotamia, where kingship begins. Uruk in particular is like the big one. That's like the first
Is that
great city of the ancient world.
Is
What's
that
it
still
called?
in the Bible? Or when you say
Ur
Uruk?
is one of them, and Uruk is another one. Uruk. They're
But I
neighboring
know that
cities.
there were two different. So when I did some little bit of research, the land of Ur, where Abram is supposedly
Yep.
from, I was seeing that there was another Ur, and I didn't know if it was Uruk or not. So
Ur and Uruk are two different but neighboring cities. They're
okay,
both two big cities. They're both. It's like New York and Washington or something, or New York and Boston kind of thing.
okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So, oh yeah. So Uruk, people have been living there for thousands of years prior to kingship. Like prior to there being any war, like people have been living there in large numbers in indigenous democracies for like 2,000 years already.
Wow.
Before these warriors come in and impose themselves as a new ruling class on top of the existing peasant farmers that had been there for a long time, living perfectly happy on their own in an indigenous democracy.
Who were these warriors? What people?
The Indo-Europeans, they call them. They're coming out of the steppe, out of the Eurasian steppe. I'm not on the map, but like north of the Black Sea, north of the Caspian, like they're coming out of the plains.
Did they call the Amorites in the Bible?
It's before that.
I've heard of that though. The Indo-Europeans. So it's like the region of like Turkey area right there.
North, like between like Pakistan up into Russia. They're coming out of the mountains, and they've got horses. These are the people that first started riding horses.
Okay.
And which is also a cannabis thing too, because cannabis was there. It was hemp ropes that they were using. Anyway, they impose themselves as a new ruling class, and they call themselves the shepherd kings. And the farmers are the people in the cities that have been worshiping the mother goddess all along and have these open sexual cultures. And that's like Sodom and Gomorrah. This is why all throughout the Bible, the shepherds are the biblical heroes. They hate the people in the cities because the people in the cities are the farmers, and that's Cain and Abel. The whole thing is a 2,000-year culture war between these new emerging ruling class that they call themselves shepherd kings, imposing patriarchal domination on top of tribal peoples that had already been there, who are perfectly happy by themselves, not being ruled by any warrior kings. But it starts around, they first come on the scene at 4000 BC or 3500 BC, say, and by 3000 BC, we're into kingship. Like permanent kingship has been established already in both Egypt and in Sumer. And then
we talk about them a lot. I just want to jump in because I love how you just flow, but we do discuss the Hyksos.
Yeah. The Hyksos are part of it. They're the shepherd kings. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, in the beginning, the shepherds are ingratiating themselves with the farmers. So the oldest stories from Mesopotamia of Inanna are like the marriage of Dumuzi and Inanna. Dumuzi is the shepherd king, and he becomes Tammuz in the Bible. He's the shepherd king, but he's also the dying and rising god. And then Inanna becomes Ishtar, she becomes Astarte in the Bible. She's the goddess of love and war. She's the most popular goddess of the Bronze Age, the queen of heaven. And she's a total harlot, super sexual. The oldest stories, the shepherd kings are ingratiating themselves. It's a story of how the shepherd kings marry the goddess and woo her love from the farmers. And so the shepherd king wins out over the farmer and wins the goddess. And those are the oldest stories. Then later on, so I talk about 3 generations. You've got the Sumerians are the oldest ones with Inanna. There, the mother goddess stuff is all great. The second generation, the Sumerians get replaced by the Akkadians, by Sargon of Akkad. We get into the Babylonian period of Hammurabi. So that's like 1800 BC is when Hammurabi is. That's also when I think Abraham is. Now we moved into it. It's like 1,000 years later, And now the patriarchy is much stronger, and they're really starting to challenge the big goddesses. And they're saying, don't marry these women. They challenge Ishtar in the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's a bunch of stuff.
Tiamat. I just read about her last night.
Oh yeah, Tiamat. I'll come back to the creation stories because that's important. We're going to come back to that. There's 3 creation stories: a Sumerian creation story, a Mesopotamian, and then the biblical. And we'll talk about those 3 because it's the same narrative of the goddess being demoted.
Okay, yeah. So we'll put a pin in that. Definitely come back to it, but keep going.
And so you mentioned the Hyksos. The way I do the timeline, I see Abraham around 1800 BC ish in this time period, right around the same time period as Hammurabi. And then it's right after that, in like 1700 BC, that the Hyksos go in. Hyksos are Canaanites from Mesopotamia, and they're all part of the same group of people that are the Israelites. They go in and invade Egypt, right, and conquer Egypt for a century. From like 1700 to 1600 BC, Canaanites are in charge of Egypt. And this is where I sort of put the time period of like Abraham, they go with Joseph, they go into Egypt, and they're in Egypt. But then a century later, the Hyksos are thrown out by the native Egyptians, and the native Egyptians then go and conquer all of Canaan. And that's a time period of 400 years when they're in the story, they're in captivity under the Egyptian rule. Well, that historically is the 400 years when Egypt ruled Canaan as an empire. After the Hyksos, the Egyptians ruled Canaan. So you have a ton of crosstalk between Egyptian religion and Canaanite religion. And these goddesses, Asherah, Astarte, and Anat, that's where they come on the scene, is in this mixed period of Egyptian, Canaanite. And so they're very mixed. Like there's a lot of Egyptian in there. And that's when
goddesses are overlapping in different cultures.
Well, that's also another whole theme, is that the goddesses are all one big super goddess, and they all syncretize.
They like come in like what's that old animation where the lions get together? Voltron. They
yeah, like that, exactly. It is. It's called Shakti. Shakti is.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
That's the Hindu term for it. It's Shakti. It's a principle. All the goddesses are all one super goddess.
Wow.
So
much love. I just want to
tell you. So anyway, the historical timeline with the Exodus, I believe it was an Exodus. They come out.
Take a breath. You should have your cup of tea or something.
Yeah.
Take a breath. I just want to let you know, peace to the audience, peace to the family. I see you out there, Lady Kier, Tahuti, everybody that I love out there, New Black World Order. I told you guys, this is the one right here. And I got to praise you for a minute. I'm not letting you go. You're going to be on here every day.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Okay, so go back into what you're talking about, because when you talk about the Hyksos and how they come in, and then you talk about all of that, it just aligns with what we've been uncovering about the Bible. People who are indoctrinated, they don't want to believe that, hey, the Bible has some really gruesome stuff going on in here. It's not holy. It's actually unholy wars. And so even though you're talking about history, I want you to keep on like dipping back and forth into the Bible and don't let go of the talk about the Bible.
Well, yeah. So my whole methodology has been to like take 2 parallel timelines. Like, what do the scholars say is like the archaeological evidence of the history, and then what is the biblical narrative timeline, and just sort of marry them up. And actually, I think you can see that all these legends and myths, you can see where they're coming out of the historical timeline, and you can see how they're being spun for propaganda purposes by the biblical writers, and how they are focusing on the details that they like and eliminating the details that they don't like. But the argument that the scholars will take that there's no truth to any of it or no historicity to any of it, no way at all. Because I saw you guys had Richard Carrier on, and he's such a good example of all of this. He's the total, he's a perfect example of like the postmodernist, deconstructionist academic.
He's a naturalist, he says. And
yeah, he's a
Richard Carrier.
Pure materialist, right? He's only going to look at material evidence. And his technical work is excellent, right? I'm not disputing any of his technical work. All these scholars, the translations and all that work that they're doing it's impeccable. It's super. It's awesome. But their whole approach of like their ideological approach, I really disagree with, because they gain authority by, I kind of missed this point before. You get religious orthodoxy makes one claim of authority, and when the scientists come in and chip it away and say, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, these guys gain authority. So every time they can shoot down a religious claim, they make their authority stronger. And so they are ideologically opposed to giving any credence at all to any kind of spiritual claim, any kind of religious claim, because that would give some authority back to the religious folks. They don't want to give authority to the religious folks. They want the authority for themselves. And they will wield that authority. Make no mistake. They want to use that authority. They want authority for themselves. What's that?
Why do they? Well, it would be obvious, but be specific. They want the authority to do what? Control the masses and push their agenda and
COVID, renewable energy. You take your pick of which heavy-handed social engineering that they want to do. They love to do heavy-handed social engineering, and half the time they get it wrong, or 2/3 of the time they get it wrong. So, we can talk about renewable energy because that's my actual profession, and I've got a lot to say.
That's our third show. We got to get back to this. Now,
so like a guy like Richard Carrier, he gains authority. Something's falling. He gains authority from disputing all these claims. So specifically, he was talking about the Exodus and saying, "Oh, the scholars don't think the Exodus happened at all." Well, I agree that the Exodus did not happen as it's like literally described in the Bible. Like, there were not 2 million people, which is like more than the population of Egypt at the time. It wasn't numbers like that. It wasn't like all this like dramatic, supernatural stuff. But to say there was no Exodus at all, I totally disagree. And I disagree on the evidence, and I disagree on the timeline, because I think the evidence is there. Are you familiar with the Merneptah stele?
Yes, I am.
It's the oldest piece of evidence of the Israelites from archaeology, and it's dated 1209 BC. And it says it's a victory stele by the Egyptian pharaoh, and it says Israel is laid waste; their seed is no more. Yes. It says we wiped them out, right? But it's and nobody really knows what he's talking about. But he is clearly talking about a military encounter with the Israelites. Everybody agrees with that. So, and people mostly would say that that's evidence of after the Exodus, or the Israelites already there or something. I think that actually is the Exodus. I think that's Pharaoh saying, it's Pharaoh's response to this slave escape out into the desert. And he said, yeah, we ran them down. We wiped them out. You'll never hear from those pesky Israelites again. Meanwhile, the oldest passage from the Bible of the text is the Song of Miriam, or the Song of the Sea, which is about the Exodus. It's the oldest passage we have about the Exodus, and it speaks to we escaped by the skin of our teeth, by like the glory of Yahweh, divine intervention. The Pharaoh's chariots fell in the water, and somehow we escaped into the desert.
I don't know if there's Yahweh mentioned in there, because have you seen
Yahweh.
The work
we can double check. I believe it does mention Yahweh.
Okay. Have you heard of Richard Friedman? He speaks exactly about what you're talking about the Exodus not being large. It's much smaller. And then he goes over the Song of Miriam. But I just wanted to throw that in, Friedman. If you're not familiar with him, he talks exactly about what you're talking about.
Yeah, so anyway, I think the Song of Miriam and the Merneptah stele are two sides of the same story.
Okay.
And it gives us a firm date on the Exodus. The Pharaoh is saying, we wiped out those pesky slaves. Entire towns worth of slaves escaped, took advantage, because this is the Bronze Age collapse. It's a really dramatic moment in history where like shit's going down and civilization is collapsing, and it's like a really epic moment. It's the beginning of 300-year dark age, where there's a complete collapse of governance and trade and literacy. From 1200 BC to 900 BC is like the 300-year dark age. This is when the Trojan War happens. And so this is all that part of the Bible from the whole United Kingdom. The whole time the Judges all takes place in this illiterate time period where there's no writing at all. Like, no one's doing any writing. But we know that there's lots of crazy wars and migrations and famine and drought and all this craziness. And so that's what I think is happening, is that this town's worth of slaves, maybe not millions, but 10,000, 5,000, enough to make a difference, enough to be noticed. They take, there's chaos in some other part of the empire. The Egyptian army is out fighting these Libyans on the other side of the frontier, and so they take advantage of the moment to flee into the desert. And Pharaoh notices, he dispatches, an army of whatever, a platoon or whatever, of chariots to go run them down. But for whatever reason, whatever miraculous turn of events, they escape. The Israelites, they managed to escape. Things happen, They managed to escape in the desert. But the Menurta Stele goes on and tells us why they didn't keep on going into Canaan. Because right after that, Pharaoh marched his army down and wiped out a bunch of towns in Canaan. And so it makes it clear that Pharaoh was still in charge of Egypt, or Pharaoh still in charge of Canaan at this point. So that the Israelites, they couldn't go back into Egypt where they just escaped slavery, but they couldn't go forward into Canaan either because Egypt was still in control. So they spent 40 years wandering around in the desert. That's 1209 BC, give or take. And then 1175 or 78, it's around 30-ish years, there's another big war with the Sea Peoples. And there's another big dramatic war that's recorded in Egyptian archaeology. And the Sea Peoples are expelled out of Egypt, but they settle in Gaza and become the Philistines of the Bible. And we know this. The scholars all know that the Sea Peoples become the Philistines at this moment in time. And that's also when all the other characters, the other groups in the Old Testament all show up. The Edomites, the kingdom of Aram, the kingdom of Edom, and the Israelites, they all show up on the map at this moment after this second big war. Give or take, some of them are already there. It's a little more fluid than that. But basically, we can pinpoint these two events, 1209 and 1175. Those are the years of the wandering around in the desert, because it's after the second big war that Egypt's control over Canaan breaks up, and that's what allows the Israelites to come in. And then you get into the period of the Judges, where it's like the Bible story says it's all this conquest. At a minimum, we could say it was a lot of fighting, and that the Israelites survived, right? That they came out, they took Jerusalem. I do believe that King David took Jerusalem at 1004 or whatever the year is, as a historical event. I do believe there was a King David. I do believe there was a King Solomon. I just don't think he was as rich as they claim, because I do think there was a first temple there built in the Phoenician style. I think there's a lot of historicity to it. And then when you go down the Book of Kings, there's one archaeological piece of evidence after another that shows that they're talking about real events.
Wow. You know what? I have the title. I'm going to have to change the title around a little bit, because you are going deep into Bible history. We love it.
I want to come on with your group. I've been looking for some folks to do some good Bible study with, because to be honest with you, when I talk to people with conventional faith, they're not interested in this stuff. They are very uncomfortable with it. And when I talk to atheists, they could care less. They don't care either. None of my friends, all my liberal friends, I'm a deconstructed liberal. All my friends and family are all liberal, conventional Democrats, right? They could care less. My kids, they could care less.
This is our food. Don't you understand? We are eating right now. Hit the like, family.
I'd love to come chat with you guys, man.
So, and we get it. Okay. We get it in as far as we get heated. Some people come in because you've done your research, right?
Yeah.
And I do my research, and then there's somebody else who's done their research, and you get in there. Oftentimes the research clashes, and people are like, no, I want to share my screen. You don't know what you're talking about. Here it is right here. So all the information you're laying out is awesome. I do want to go into, honestly, it's just exactly what we want to hear. But I do want you to start bringing into the goddess part, or the mother, how they meaning historical rulers, started to just push the mother out of the whole worship.
Yeah, so the mother stuff is just so amazing. What was really going on? So there's actually 3 goddesses in the Old Testament.
Okay.
Asherah is the one who's mentioned the most times, and she's mentioned as an Asherah pole that they keep trying to chop her down. It's like a totem pole. We don't really know exactly.
Right.
Some kind of carved pole. But there's also Astarte, but her name's a little confused. Sometimes they call her Ashtoreth, or sometimes they call her Ashtaroth with an OTH, and each one means something different. And they also call her the Queen of Heaven. Queen of Heaven was a title, and that means that she was the most important goddess in the land, and not the king, not the wife of the king of the gods either. But there's a third goddess named Anat, and she's not mentioned. And Anat is like our friend Kali over here. She is a goddess of death and destruction. She wears the same necklace of heads, and the same belt of human hands. She bathes in blood and delights in slaughter. And she is the most powerful character on the chessboard.
You told me about her. she's one of my favorite goddesses. I just want to let you know that I've done research on her, especially when she told her father, like, you're going to do this for me, or I'm going to kill everything. I'm going to chop your head off or something like that. But go on.
She says she walks up to El. So this is in the Ugaritic texts, which were discovered in archaeology, which gives us the mythology of El and Baal and Asherah, Astarte and Anat, which we never had before. Like, these were just names on a page in the Bible. We didn't know anything about them. But now we've got this mythology, and it's like crazy. The Baal cycle is like a crazy story. Because Anat, who's like Kali, as I was saying, she's the consort of Baal. That's why we know she should be in the story, in the Bible story, because they talk about Baal a lot, right? But they never mention Anat. Why? Because Anat is way more powerful than everybody. So they can chop down the Asherah pole, and they can insult Astarte by calling her Ashtoreth. The ETH means shame, by the way. It's shameful, Astarte, because they're slut-shaming her because she's a harlot. And the OTH means plural, because they're talking about all three goddesses all at once. Anyway, in the Ugaritic texts, I was mentioning El and Yahweh were two separate gods. So Yahweh was a new god. He comes on the scene with the Exodus. But it used to be that Baal was the existing king of the gods. And so El was the high father, though. He's the father of everybody. And Asherah is his wife. So El and Asherah are the high father and the mother goddess, and they're the parents of all the gods. And so Baal becomes king of the gods, and he wants
Israelite worship. I'm sorry to jump in, but it's like this is an Israelite worship, right?
Yeah, no, this was before Yahweh. So the Hyksos, for instance, this was the Hyksos religion. They were Baal worshippers. So in the stories, when Anat wants something, like she wants to get Baal is her lover, she wants to get Baal a new temple because he's now king of the gods, she has to go get permission from El. So she walks up to her father, the heavenly father, the creator of the universe, the king of the gods, the father of the gods. She said, Baal needs a temple. And you better give it to me, El, or I'm going to throw you down like a lamb. I'm going to smash your skull and make your gray beard run red with gore. Do not be so confident in your mighty house, El, or I will tear it down with my strong arms. Like, whoa! Like, who talks to El like that? And that's not just in one story. She does it every time she approaches El and asks for something. And every time El responds the same way. He doesn't get indignant. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't say, how dare you speak to me so disrespectfully, you little wench. No, he says, oh, my daughter. No one's as violent and terrible as you. What can I do for you today? And he gives her what she wants. Every time he gives her what she wants. And El and Anat are like great buddies. But Anat is by far the most powerful. You know, you can't. And the scholars don't see this. The scholars say, Anat's very rude. She is a rude warrior goddess who's rude to El. I'm like, no, that is a sign of dominance.
Yeah, that is a sign. Chauvinism, right?
Yeah, it's a sign of dominance. You can't make that expression unless it's very explicit that Anat is dominant of El. She's going to just, when she says she's going to tear down his house, she's saying she's going to destroy all of creation. His house is creation. So that's like Kali. She's going to be the last one standing. After the apocalyptic war and all the gods all kill each other, Kali is going to be the last one standing. She's going to be the one who's going to bathe in the blood of the guilty and the innocent and delight in the slaughter of everybody. It's the mother goddess.
Though, for those who don't know the story of Kali, quickly go over it for us if you would. And
so she's the mother goddess in her angry form. And so the goddess has three forms: mother, maiden, and death. And this is a repeating motif over and over and over again. So in India, in the Hindus, this is Parvati. The goddess has three forms. Parvati is the kind mother goddess, who's the wife of Shiva. That's Shiva lying on his back there. You can't really see it because it's behind my name tag.
Remove your name a little bit. You can like go in and remove your name. Just put an E or just put a dot, like a period. So go and change your name when you hit those three dots that say, you hit those three dots on, see the microphone where you can mute on your mic on your little avatar thingy? See the microphone? So there are three dots next to it. Do you see those three dots?
No, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, you're there.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. You can see.
I was going to say you can move it out of the way, but let me put it on the big screen anyway. See if we could see it. Oh, we can see him. We can see him getting massacred.
No. Actually, what you can't see his face. Actually, he's not being killed. He's laying in a field of wildflowers with a smile on his face. He's just chilling.
So he's
Yeah,
enjoying that. Walk on me. Got it.
no, because it's blocked behind her leg, so you can't see it. But he's actually got a great big erection, and he's just chilling and waiting for her to be done with her slaughter, and then she's going to notice and sit down and take a ride, and then she's going to calm down and turn back into the loving mother goddess.
Wow. That's like the story of Sekhmet. She goes from Het-Heru from
It's
Hathor.
exactly Sekhmet. Sekhmet, Hathor, and Bastet are the Egyptian version of these three same goddesses. It's also in the Quran. The satanic verses in the Quran has Alat is the mother goddess, and I forget the name of the other two, but it's the same triple deity. And in the Eleusinian mysteries, it's in Greece, it's Artemis, Demeter, and Hecate that are the three goddesses. This motif repeats over and over and over again because this is the goddess. She comes in this triple form: mother, maiden, and death. And the maiden is always the most popular one, like Aphrodite and Venus. So but the Greeks water her down. Ishtar is like Aphrodite and Athena combined. She's the goddess of love and war and wisdom and prophecy and everything. The Greeks kind of take some of those powers away. But the older ones, it's like she's all powerful. So in India, that's Durga is the maiden. If you go into India right now, you'll see Durga temples all over the place. So this motif repeats over and over and over again because it's super, super old, like really old. We have no idea how old it is.
Right.
And so back to the Shakti principle. All these traditions all think that the origins of the universe are from a divine mother, like a primordial virgin mother who was there all by herself. The Greeks say it's Gaia. For the Mesopotamians,
I just did a show on it last night.
Yeah, it was Namu is the oldest version, and then for the Babylonians, it's Tiamat. She's the salt waters, and out of the salt waters comes the fresh waters, and that's the divine male and female principle. In India, they call her Shakti, and Shakti is not really a goddess. Shakti is like the primordial, unformed chaos, just the salt waters, right? But out of that comes the divine. The Heavenly Father is born from that. And so then in Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the surface of the deep.
Yes.
And the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. The deep waters are separate from God. God did not create the waters. God created the heaven and the earth. The waters were already there. The deep waters, the surface of the deep waters, that there's a surface there makes it clear that there's separation.
Did you watch my show? I did a show I just talked about this.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Similar to what you're saying, but it's crazy.
What I'm saying is those waters are the same as Tiamat and the same as Namu. And scholars have recognized this for a long time because the word deep is Tehom, and that's like the same as Tiamat. And so scholars have long recognized this, but they don't go make the additional point of saying, I'm making the point that they're taking her name away. And by taking her name away, they're making her not a deity anymore. And this is a very powerful theological, giving a name to something is like, if you study the Bible, you know that this is very important. The power to give names is like a divine power, right? And so, but the same thing happens in reverse. When you take the name away, you're taking away their divinity. And so when you take away the name of the waters and don't give her a name, you've made her non-existent as a goddess.
I'm getting emotional. I'm getting verklempt, you guys. No, this is choking me up because it's so beautiful because, this is the pain that I'm feeling, that just the travesty. Why? How could you do this? How could you remove the mother, the feminine? What's going on in the minds of the men who are doing this?
They're taking power away from the women because the women had a lot of power, and the women have scary power. When the women are unleashed, their power is scary because the way these matriarchal social structures work is kind of like labor unions. The same lesson applies. If you're in a labor union, if you're an individual worker, you get exploited. But labor unions, they come together, and as a collective, they wield power over the bosses, right? Same thing with women. When women are selected out into a single monogamous marriage where they live with just one man under the domination of that man, then the women are forced into this submissive role. But when the women all stay together in their own big house and all the girls all together, and they can have like a labor union, so to speak, then they've got power over the men. And then when the women keep the babies and the women keep the money and all this prostitution that was going on, there was no shame in it. The women kept the money. The women kept the money.
Talking about temple prostitution? Are you going?
Yeah, they're not being pimped out by some man. This is women running the entire business. Men are coming on their hands and knees, begging for sexual favors and throwing money at the women, and the women are keeping it and taking it back to their house and saying thank you very much. And that girl who's a harlot is like, she's not shamed. She's like one of the most powerful girls in the house because she's got friends in high places and she brings in lots of money and yada yada yada. She knows where the best parties are, whatever.
No, I just want to jump in, and that's documented in history about in the temple of Diana and all these other, when they had temple prostitutes before Diana. You said Astarte. The women, even they were revered, and I think it was a rite of passage for every woman to go to the temple and do.
This is controversial, but yeah, Herodotus in his histories talks about. Right. He's purporting a rumor, so it's you can take it with a grain of salt. But he talks about in the Babylonians that every woman it was an obligation, like that at least once in her life she would go to the temple and have sex with a stranger, and at least once in life she had to do it. It's always, and it's with strangers. It's like people from out of town. It's not like the guy down the block that you're like. Let's meet at the temple. Like it's got to be with a stranger. And so they celebrate that stuff.
You have to. We have to make sure that people see it was in honor of the goddess, correct?
Yeah, and then what happens to these girls that get pregnant in ritual sex? It's a virgin birth. They say we don't know the baby daddy is. I was impregnated by the gods, and so you have virgin births just as a day-to-day thing, like all over the place, and that's why it becomes so prominent in literature, because it was probably a perfectly normative thing for girls who got impregnated in temple sex to just say that they were impregnated by the gods. And then that would make sense as to why you see it all over the place in this ancient literature. It's one famous woman, one famous character after another is born of the gods.
I got to interject because I have one of my very dear beloved sisters in the audience. I need to address this really quickly.
Okay.
This is actually what Princella was saying in essence. Princella is she's a serious misandrist. This isn't about the Lady Kier. I love you, but Lady Kier, I want to clear up something about Princella. She hates men. She says they should all be destroyed. So we got to be careful with these people who have this agenda to use, just like the men, they have the agenda to use what we're bringing forth as truth. And then they say, oh, see, so we gotta destroy the man. So we want to stay balanced. We don't want to fall over to overshoot. So I just wanted to bring that up, let people know that.
Yeah, I would just assume not fall victim to some misandrist who wants to kill men.
Yeah, no, this is just facts. This is just facts about history and the worship, and there is a feminine presence. And it's like whenever we bring it up, and not Lady Kier. Lady Kier is awesome. But when you bring it up, somehow it's always either used in the wrong way for feminist agenda. I mean, hateful misandrist.
Right.
Or women and men are called, oh, you just want to bring the man down. You just want to, why is that energy out there?
I don't know. People are haters. I don't know.
Okay, moving right along. Talk to us a little bit about consciousness, though, because I have you for.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even complete that point before about the.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I meant to come back to this so we've got authority between orthodoxy and scientists. The problem with the scientists, they want to wield that power and they keep getting it wrong, and they keep having kind of disastrous getting shit wrong, and their philosophy is totally incoherent, like as a worldview. And so it gets kind of ugly. And so now there's this idea that I learned about just recently. So in science, they claim everything is reducible to math and physics, but they have this problem with consciousness. They call consciousness the hard problem because consciousness is, they can't reduce it to anything material. And so they've been trying for 400 years now to figure out where in the brain that consciousness comes from. And they keep slicing and dicing the brain, trying to dissect it to figure out where that magic place inside the brain that our consciousness comes from. because they're assuming that it's inside your brain, inside your head. But mystics have been saying no for thousands of years. Mystics have been saying no. Consciousness is universal. It exists outside of our bodies, and that the divine and consciousness and the divine are all connected, and God is within us. And mystics have been saying this stuff forever. So I learned this bit of philosophy called panpsychism, which takes the problem of consciousness and flips it on its head from a scientific perspective. And it says, well, if the scientists have not been able to make consciousness arise from matter, can we make matter arise from consciousness?
Right.
And it turns out that from a philosophical perspective, it's quite easy, because if all of matter is just mathematics and physics and mathematics is clearly the product of a mind. Mathematics is not itself material. Mathematics is immaterial. Mathematics is clearly the product of a mind, and if all the universe can be described by mathematics, the implication is that it's a mind that came first, that there's consciousness as the underlying substrate of the material universe. And that I truly believe that this is true, that free will, the scientists say no God, no soul, no free will. I say all three are wrong. There is God, there is soul, there is free will, and that free will goes all the way down the stack to elemental particle physics, and that we need to make a new variable in physics for free will, and that the next step forward, the heliocentric move forward for the space age, is to blend mathematics and mysticism, for physics and mysticism to come together, and have a breakthrough, for the scientists to drop this pretension that it's just a material world, and then take what's good from the old religions, because the old religions are failing, because we're not in the Iron Age anymore, we're in the space age, and we need space age religion and space age spirituality. So blend physics and math, or blend mysticism and physics, and then this discussion of the mother helps reframe the whole conversation about God, and get back to our roots, and get back to old traditions that aren't, where we're not just making stuff up, we're unearthing things that have been there all along. So I think that's what we need to be doing in the space age, and I want to be part of, an ecological civilization that has a new type of spirituality. Put the mother back in the Trinity, so to speak. The mother, Father, and Son. That's what it should be, not the Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
Right. Stop hiding it. Let me go back to the consciousness point. Definitely. Absolutely. Are you going to be with me for another hour? I see you checking your clock.
No, I'm not going to have another hour at all. No, for sure.
You told me 2 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
Did we really say 2 hours?
No, you can come back for sure. Now you have to come back.
No, I mean, it's the middle of the workday for me. I can't. But in the evenings, I can do extended sessions.
And we're going to sit you down with other, have discussions with people who, not right away, but when you're coming.
I'm ready to dive in, frankly. I'm working on my new book. I'm working on presentations. So I do want to get, what do you guys call your channel? The hardest place on earth? I want to get in the debate, man. Like,
that was the environment to be in. Oh,
bring me the Black Hebrew Israelites. I want to tell them they got a mother of God. I'm ready.
Did you hear that, family? Oh my gosh. I think Ed is going to be a new family member of the HOK, the House of Consciousness. Because, sometimes people, they can't handle it. They're like, I can't do this. This is too much. Not just.
Oh, dude, I've been trying to find someone to have these discussions. I'll do the whole Bible story, man. I'll do a whole Bible study, hours and hours. But I'm gonna have to cut it off here at 1 o'clock.
No, definitely. I just want you to talk about your new book, what you're working on, and then we'll get you scheduled for the next time. Come on. By the way, I do want to bring you on Cam Up, where, like I said, it's just like talking about you and your journey. But anyway, talk to us about the new book that you're working on, The Mother of God, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tentative title, but I think that'll probably be a pretty good title. Yeah, I got a publisher. Choir Publishing is a religious publisher. They're like deconstructed Christians, but they're still spiritual. So they didn't become atheists. So it's like former ministers and stuff. It's Choir, Quoir. So Choir with a Q. Mm-hmm. Really nice little publishing house. And so I just signed a contract with them the other day, like last week. So now it's a follow-up to my first book. So it's same material, but like more scholarly, more like strongly argued and better edited, and just a better product. But yeah, so like I'm going to make the case that the Mother of God, the God of the Bible has a mother, that we see her being thrown out in the Old Testament. That's going to be the argument.
Oh my gosh, I am in love with this information. I love it. I've been saying it. I need I need an ally. We're
Well,
coming
thanks. Well, I
together.
needed one too, so great to connect.
So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to let you see yourself out, and you can see. You look forward to seeing more of Ed. You can go out, and I'm going to keep streaming for a while because I want to also drop the link to your book. If you could, to Hootie or any of the mods, please go get the link to Ed's book. Put it in the
Yeah, I've got a
chat.
Substack, edwarddodge.substack, if you want a link. I've got some articles there. I've got a website, goddess.io. It's all kind of like projects and stuff. It's not really very organized.
All right.
But the Substack, I post on
Now,
infrequently.
Substack is where your book is, because I was going to we usually go to Amazon, so you want
No,
your book.
the book's on Amazon. The Substack is where I blog.
Oh, great. Okay. Substack. Now, what's the information? Like, I'll put it in right now in the chat.
It's called edwarddodge.substack.com.
Edward Dodge.
Yeah, all one word with 2 D's in the middle.
Edward Dodge Substack. SUBSTACK.
Yep.
What?
Com.
.com. All right. Please reshare that. Edward Dodge family. Thank you so much, Edward Dodge. Ed, we're going to be seeing you before next week, hopefully.
All right. Yeah. No, I'm around. So, it's great. Great to be here.
Thank you. Have a great day. Peace to you, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Talk to you later.
All right, let me let you out of the off the stage. Enjoy your day. Wow, I told you that this was going to be a phenomenal interview. My alarm's going off. Give me 1 second. I just got to turn it off. Just 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second. Interesting how my alarm went off right when he left, right? Family, oh my gosh, I love it. I'm going to drop the link a little bit if you want to come in, if you're not doing it. I know this is a middle of the workday, but I just want to talk about some of the stuff that he spoke on that, you know, if you've been following me, I've been saying a lot of this stuff and he just comes in and adds in. I love how he knows the history of the Hyksos. He's fitting right in. And that's right, New Black World Order. And by the way, you know my angel Tasia is always with me. Go to this brother's channel. Please subscribe. Justice for Tasia. Go to this brother's channel. He does work. He gets it in. He's one of the real boots on the ground gods out there. About that, we're not against men over here. And Lady Kiera, she's a mother. She's a wife. All of the sisters here, we just want to tell the truth, which is the goddess, the mother goddess, or the mother god. I don't even like to use goddess. The mother god is a strong presence in what we know as worship. You know, I talk about the expensive tissue hypothesis, how even we're talking about science, even when when we had that one common ancestor. Hey, Lady Kier, come on in. I'm gonna finish my thought. Peace to you, peace and love, beautiful sister. So, peace. So the mother goddess. I'm talking about the concept of the expensive tissue hypothesis. When we ate a certain diet, especially a diet with fat and meat, protein, our brains developed. 60%. Our brains grew 60% in size compared to what it was before we had a better diet. Why am I saying this? Once our brains developed and we were able to have a stronger, better neurological system, so to speak, we started to conceptualize God, right? We went to a different level of consciousness and we began worship. And what was the first worship? The first worship was the mother. Why? Because we said, what gives us life? What is life about? What sustains us? Before the worship of the bovine, before the worship of the animal, which was giving us sustenance, which was the meat that was making our brain grow, and we put that together. Even before that, we knew we as creatures, as species, as a creation, came out of this person, this what is she? She's different than that male. This is the God. So I want you to elaborate on that. How and tell us how you like the interview. I know you love it.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. I enjoyed that a lot. I've actually never heard of Mr. Edwards, so I that was definitely an interesting interview and perspective that you rarely hear from a male nowadays. You know,
I
regardless
know.
of what race he is. You know,
Yeah,
so
it doesn't matter.
yeah, so that was definitely very pleasant to hear, someone confirm things that we already know, that have biblical backing, that have scientific backing, so to speak, to show. you
That's
know
right.
um I just I think it's going to make some really for some interesting conversations, considering his standpoint, especially when he comes over to the HOK.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that he called out the Israelites, that's a whole nother level of, like I said, smoke that he
He's
cleared.
ready for the smoke. You know, that's amazing too. I got to get your song. I know Sonetter has it, but I want to put it on this channel because I love how he's like, what do you call it? The most dangerous environment.
Right.
It's the toughest environment. So yeah, it's great. I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
forward
it
to
I think he's gonna be pretty awesome. I was like I enjoyed Richard Carrier too, but I definitely feel like Edward has a lot of personality.
it.
And I feel like he was able to connect to a lot easier. So I definitely enjoyed the conversation and um
He's
his
got a lot of
perspective.
energy. He's got a lot of energy. You know, you could just sit back and let him go. I just had to jump in and, keep the interview balanced. But he is like, you tapped into, you're looking for in the trees and you're looking for the sap, the maple
Mhm.
syrup. You tap in and it's just, he just keeps flowing. He has so much to share. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much for being here. You're always so supportive. And you know what I love is that women are being we're the femininity, not just women,
Right.
the femininity, the feminine of worship is being brought out. It's being uncovered.
Right.
So
I feel like it's definitely making a comeback slowly but surely. I think people are starting to recognize not only just our importance to society, but um, how much we mean, period, to mankind,
yeah.
And I think that's been a lot of the what's been lost behind it. Like if you take out religion, period, outside of that, people just have lost the ability to respect or nurture and care for women in general. It just seems like, we've become kind of the bottom of the totem pole. And for those of us that do have respect, it's almost like we had to fight our way into that.
Oh yeah.
To be able to get that, we had to really demand it and stick by it, and probably went through who knows how many relationships trying to
Wow.
get to that one person that was able to finally see you, as the
Yeah.
person you are, because the ratio is so bad for those who don't respect women versus those who actually do. So
Right. And we're changing that. And that's why I want you and a couple other sisters. I saw Arkea out there and all the other beautiful sisters. We're gonna get a panel. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the time, but we're gonna get a panel where, we're gonna talk about even when we're right here right now, Lady Care, we have to be careful not to talk about the power of the woman because then
right.
people will misjudge us. But we're going to get on, and there's strength in numbers. We're going to talk about. I'm just telling the truth. The woman with the feminine and the woman. That's the first God. I'm sorry. We've accepted it. You know how the Israelites say you accepted a white Jesus. Now there's a black Jesus. Well, that is conjecture, speculation, but historically, there's hard evidence showing and logic that the feminine and the woman was the first worshiped God. And even in the Bible, you see, stop worshiping that mother. She's the devil. Worship only this male God. So we're gonna get together. I gotta schedule
Mhm.
it, and we gotta talk about just the power, the original power. There you go.
Right.
The original power of the feminine. The original power
Right.
of the feminine.
Right. And it's a sacred power, and I think when
Yes.
people see it as something that is divine, they won't have as much contention with the fact that woman is considered God, you know, because we're living, when you're able to live within your femininity, or live within your feminine as a woman, you know, you're able to really flourish, you know, in your power. And I think that we've been beaten down so much, and we're so hardened, you know, that no one realizes that it's important for us to be able to be soft. And we've forgotten that we can be softer. You know, we've forgotten that duality because how society is, and, you know, people being single parents, and you know, or the traumas, you know, that have just kind of taken over a lot of people's lives. So I think that getting back to a place where you can actually be soft, because I it took me a long time to really learn the difference, and I'm still working on it because I've spent most of my life having to be on the hard side. So it's learning how to soften yourself, like how when men are always complaining about our mouths and things of those things, that is it is learned behavior. You know, these are learned behaviors that we've taken from not only within our own families, but from society, because these are the ways that we've learned that we've had to be in order to kind of press our way forward. um I've spent a lot of time in my life being the quiet one, um and I realized majority of the time, from that point of looking back, when you were in that shut up and be quiet mode, and or that you know, just be a woman, so you don't really have an opinion, so you just kind of sit to the side, you know, while people are having their conversations or their thoughts, you know, because you don't want to look like you're impeding on men's conversations or anything like that. You know, what I've come to realize is a lot of women end up in states of depression, and anxiety, and you go through a lot of self-esteem issues, and I don't think a lot of people understand how these different ways that society looks at women has affected the way that we operate on all those different levels, including, you know, all the issues women have with their body and things of that nature. Now people wonder why it's so out of control, and they don't understand that it is 9 times out of 10 because of not only the pedestal we've been taken off of, but because what society has taught us to think about ourselves. So we have to reteach ourselves how to think of ourselves as goddesses or a queen. You know, you got to start telling yourself these things and calling yourselves these things in order to recreate that state of mind. Because in today's society, as soon as you walk out your door, 9 times out of 10, there's no one else that sees you that way.
Let me ask you. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to make a statement. Yes, we've tried to. That's important. We said, okay, I'm a queen, I'm a goddess, and reminding everyone. However, I'm finding something else that works better. Moving and asserting, going to the core, saying, I'm the first one. I don't need to. I do say I'm a queen, I'm a goddess to remind people. But I like to tell people the woman is the first God. That's my vibration now. And it's true, because when I let them know, because there are some women out there, let's be real, they're not moving in their power as queens and goddesses. But the thing is that because they've been damaged for whatever reason. But we need to remind people, and we will show them through facts, through information. We are the first ones. And if you don't have to even be a Bible believer. The woman is the first God. I had a conversation with my friend Rob Rack last night. He was like, no, men are the ones who rule. Their energy is the universal energy that's the God energy. There is no male God energy without the first female energy. Why is that so hard to understand when you came out of a woman literally? Why can you not see the macrocosm when you look at the microcosm? Why can't you see the big picture that the woman was the first one? When I say the woman, the feminine, right. and this is the thing, because you know why? It all goes back to fear. Fear of God. That's where you talk about God. Oh, I'm scared God's going to kill me if I smoke weed, or if I have sex or eat pork. No, you really fear the feminine. You fear the feminine. When we see these transsexuals, I'm going on the tangent, but I gotta go. When you see these males that want to become female, that's really at the core fear. The envy and the jealousy, but I'm gonna be a woman. At the core, you fear because you don't want to submit to that feminine power, because also the mother has failed men and women, but they're women. The mother has failed them. That mother goddess isn't even, it's so disconnected. So I don't want to go too deep onto that, but I'm getting back to the fear. They fear that if she knows that she's the first god, she's going to try to take me over. She's going to emasculate me. She's going to rule me. What can I do without her? She's going to know that I need her. That's why we have so many men saying, go on, leave. I don't need you. That never, baby, my love, that never works on me. Never. You know why? And I know it doesn't work on you, because I know you need me, because I know that I am life, and I know that I give life. We do a lot of sacrifices. See, I'm up here talking for women. You're a mother. I hear your children in the back. You're a wife. You're a good wife. You're a good mother. You stay home. You take care of the family. You do the music. You're like superwoman. But they think we're just like, oh, I just want to be God. Okay, because no, I deserve to be God. Do you know I literally gave my body. My edges came out with this child.
Right. And I don't think people realize that, childbirth is considered one of the closest acts connected to death.
Come on.
So a woman practically dies every time she gives birth.
Say it a third time, please.
Right. A woman practically dies when she gives birth.
They don't understand that. My friend said last night, you just have to carry the baby, and I'm literally giving my blood and my body into this being. I'm actually giving my life. Your body's never the same.
It takes everything in me.
Everything.
Yes, that sperm help, but it takes everything in me in order to give life to this child. In order to bring it forth into this earth, it takes everything inside of me to do that.
I love you. I'm tingling with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, not the Holy Ghost, the brother, the feminine power and the connection. It is giving life. You're giving you're literally giving your life.
Absolutely.
So how can I not be the first God? How?
Yeah.
Does that mean, wait a minute, you know how they say, oh, the God, you know how he talked about the one goddess, Anat, goes to her dad and says, you give this to me, or I'll do this and this. And that God says, just, okay, you can have it. See, that's being a God. In every story you hear about the God being humbled. So we as the God, what do, Lady Kiera? We humble to our husband and to our children, but we know we're the power. So go ahead, talk on that. I just you got me going. Go ahead.
No, I totally agree. I mean, in today's society, I think it's a programming. I think that people have got so caught up in this idea of man being the head of the household that they literally don't think that a woman has any place in leadership or in authority. And I think that a lot of people who really hold on to that are mainly people that are connected to dysfunctional relationships and dysfunctional backgrounds. Because if you pay attention to a lot of people in actually happy, healthy, successful relationships, I ain't talking about people who just been together for 35 years, even though they've been beating each other down the entire time. I'm talking about people who are actually in happy, healthy, non-toxic relationships. They work and they are successful because they respect each other equally. They understand that they need each other in order to actually run the household successfully. And that does not matter if your wife is a stay-at-home mom or if she goes out and works. At the end of the day, those components always meet at the end of the road together. And I think a lot of people fail to recognize that, because we can all go out and work and get a job and pay bills. That's how society works today. That's what's expected of everyone. But when it comes to that home life, people like to pick and choose what they will or won't do, what they feel is important to them and what isn't. And in today's society, they have chosen to make the woman the person that is responsible for the household and for the family, but without the title of respect at the same time, because you still
Right.
have the husband as the head of the household. So even though, yes, everyone else is expected to listen to the mother except for the father.
Come on. And you know what? When you talk about that synergistic relationship, you know, working together in synchronicity, working as a unit, as a machine, which is called family. I don't
Right.
know how my connection is going. I don't know why my Wi-Fi just popped up. Can you still see me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So if everything's balanced, she's not a cuckoo bird. She's not wanting to run the streets. She's ready to be there. I'm
Right.
ready to have the children. I'm ready to be here. You are the protector. You're the man. I'm going to give you that male honor. He has to say so many times, because of they haven't been raised, a lot of men, not all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a diss on them. They haven't seen mother, father. They've seen just mom, and mom has maybe beat them down as
Right.
young male children, and then young male men children, you know, teen, and then so mom has always beat him down, emasculate. Oh, you ain't gonna beat up. So when he's in the marriage and he's a good guy, he can't understand that. Wait a minute, the wife needs power. She's not just here to have babies, cook, clean, and you know, love you. She needs power. That doesn't take away from your power. It actually enhances your power.
Absolutely.
Now you're forced to be reckoned with. So that's the thing. When you talked about that, about the toxic, when I'm telling you, the male is the key, unless he's with a woman who's just you. Why are you even with her? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a no-brainer. Pretty soon, if a woman is so disgusting and imbalanced and dysfunctional and weak, a man will eventually leave. It's really a no-brainer for men.
Right.
But if it's a relationship where they're both fine, if there's problems, it's usually because he's afraid, there's that fear, to let her have power.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want her to think that you ain't ruling me. I'm the boss. I know you're the boss, but I'm God. Where'd the babies come from?
Right.
The
Right.
babies, I know you gave me the seed. I made the baby. Remember what you said? I almost died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can't come forth but through us. It don't matter how many seeds you put in a woman. She is the one that has to produce
She's
the
the
child.
creator. Say it. Say it. She's the creator.
She is the creator.
They
But
didn't want to, my brother didn't want to acquiesce to that last night. She's the creator. You're not, you're not creating,
you're
you're
like
not
you're
creating a
like the
baby.
planner. You know how the gardener
You're
goes
not
in.
creating the baby when you give the seed.
That's
You're
and that and that's what I was saying. You're like the planner with the gardener. You know what I'm saying?
You're not even the planter, really.
They
I
may
hate
drop
to
the
tell
seeds.
you.
They may.
Sometimes they don't get the pleasure to plant.
You're
They just
right.
hand it over. And
Right.
it's like, I'm not, and excuse me to the brothers. I love you. It's very important. I love to submit, even though people think submit is like weak. I love to let my man know you're ruling this, but I
Right.
want him to know I'm ruling God, just like the idea of Jesus. It's the same thing. Jesus, in the story, you don't have to be a Christian to just listen to the story. God says, Jesus, you got this. I am God, but Jesus, you're God.
Yeah.
And what does Jesus do? He didn't say, God, get on your knees and bow down. No, Jesus says, you're the God, but guess what? I have all the power. I'm God. So that's how it is with the woman. That's the feminine, the way it works. The woman is the power. You're not going to make it. I don't care what any man says. I want to see you. There's nothing showing that we don't need men. However, you can't make a child. You can't create a child. The power is in the creation. The power is in her hands. Stop discounting it. It's not black woman want to be in charge. We know we're the most spiritual. Girl, I'm going on. You could just interrupt me anytime. Jump
No,
in.
you're right. You're right. I mean, I don't think you can find a deeper group of people who that are more spiritual than not just the African people, but if we want to dissect that, then definitely the black woman. You know, I said when he was talking, I always knew I was superwoman because we
I
do
love
have
it.
powers. I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many times, the power of manifestation has come through for me. The
Come on.
ability to the ability to foresee, the
Yes.
has stabilized and kept my family on many occasions.
Yes.
My husband goes to work every day. I mean, he's definitely the breadwinner. I
Yes.
run my business from home or whatnot, but he is the breadwinner. So he definitely does all of that, but it does not change the fact that if it had not been for a lot of decisions or thoughts or expressions of ideas that I
Oh,
have given or put out there, that there are things that would not only not have happened, would never have manifest.
oh,
There are things that he can tell you in his life that have changed only because of me.
oh,
Not because of his mother, not because of his family or anything like that. Because this is the power of a good woman, a good spiritual woman on your side.
come
Because
on.
what I'm very big on is coverage. And no matter what
Mm.
I go through in life, I know I'm covered on all
Come on. Oh my God.
on all levels. So I very seldom worry, in the of being worried. I very, very seldom worry about anything because I have this innate knowing that the
Right.
universe is always provided and it always does. I have an ability of knowing when my ancestors are speaking to me and being able to pull the information needed to actually make the right decisions. And that's something because he didn't come from a very deeply spiritual background that I was able to actually introduce him to and actually make him more aware of so that now he's able to actually feel his own spiritual power.
Oh
He's
wow.
able to actually really start to recognize the God within himself, not just the one he read about, not just the one that people talk about, but the one that actually is within him, and he can actually start to operate from there. So now he's in a space where he's in a space of favor and he's consistently covered, so
Yeah.
spirituality I think is really big to our community. I think it's really big on who we are. I don't think it has to have anything to do with any specific deity or anything, because I'll be honest enough to say that I don't pray to any specific name. When I deal in spirituality, I deal specifically with the creator and my ancestors, so and if I do decide to go into anything, then I deal in Yoruba and deal with those deities and things of that nature. But I don't even with that being said, I know of it. I've used it in the past. It's not something that I really pull on now because I am so powerful now. I recognize I need none.
Hmm.
I need none because all their power is already within me. So long as I keep on tapping into that power source, then I don't have to call on a specific name in order to receive that power because I am the power source. I
Wow.
am the God.
Love it. Wow. You know what? I don't have the bombs to drop. I'm sorry. I don't have
Mhm.
the glass to break sound effects, but that was so beautiful, so moving. We love it. When people say ate, we just ate a very wonderful meal today on this particular
Absolutely.
live stream. You're the dessert. And the brother who was up here, Ed Dodge. Yes, I
Mhm.
said brother and I meant it. That's
Brother
another
from
thing.
another mother. We know
Brother
how
from
that
another
goes.
mother. This is what we're going to do. We don't forget about what's happened to us, but we're gods. We're not down here.
Absolutely.
Hebrews, I love my Hebrews. On one stream I said I used to be a Hebrew when I was going in on that lady. Everything that I've ever studied or everything that I've gone through, I'm always going to be that.
Mhm.
However, I'm on another level from religion.
Right.
I am Catholic. I am Hebrew. I am, just
Right.
this
You embody the
whole
sources. You embody the sources.
everything. And then I'm leveling up to godhood. In our godship, in our godhood, we don't tit for tat. What we do is we correct and we rule well. And those who are vessels fitted for destruction, because there are very many, They
Right.
go into the fire and they just reincarnate. They'll be okay. However, we're vibrating high. So when I say that was a great meal today, thank you so much, Ed Dodge. He will be back. He's ready to get in here. He's ready to come to the
I
toughest
can't wait.
environment.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. I
I
definitely.
had to ease Ed in. I know he's eager. I brought him here. We're gonna bring him. Then we're gonna bring him to Cam Up. Then we're gonna bring him to House of Consciousness. Then we're gonna bring him to Sun
Right, right. I can't wait because that is going to be good. Because he
Yeah.
calling out the right group of people because you know they're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
show up. Elder Yara, all them, they showing up.
Why was Elder Yara in my head when he was talking about that?
Yeah, you know what? He one of the first people I thought of because you know Elder Yara ain't afraid to challenge. So I know he's gonna pop up. If don't
Yes.
no other Hebrew pop up to actually challenge it, I know he will.
Oh, he will. So, and it's all at the end of the day, it's all love. We bang hard, but we bang on the information from a place of learning. It's like if we go to tear it down and it tears down, shouldn't have been there anyway. When we
Mhm.
hit it, if we have that pinata stick and that pinata stick won't knock it down, then okay, I guess it can stay.
Absolutely, because that means you're standing on something solid. If we ain't able to break it open, then that means you got something going right there.
Yes. So with that said, bring your information, bring all that you have, all your philosophy, all your thought, all your concepts to the House of Consciousness. Bring it to us, and we will whack it a few times with our pinata sticks. And if it stands, welcome to the House of Consciousness, and
Absolutely.
welcome to the darkest minds of the light. Thank you so much, Lady Kier. I'm still waiting on my music.
No, and you know what's funny is my husband has a track he has been working on for you, and it's actually super dope. So I'm gonna tell him today he need to go in and send it out. I know he was tweaking it, but he actually has a track he's been working on for you that is really dope. So I hope you like it because it actually is really dope. I think you're gonna love it.
I already know I'm going to love it. You know what? I'll write to it and I'll have it back to you guys in a matter of, I'm not trying to flex. Maybe like a day or two. The thing is with
That's
me,
what's up.
I'm not like Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey singer, but I can write a song. And
Well,
that's
that's
what
what's up. That's beautiful because you know what? More people need songwriters because if there was more people writing good songs out here, we wouldn't have so much bad music on the radio right now. So.
uh-oh. See, now with that said, she just did a sneak diss on the entire music
Hey,
industry.
well, I'm sorry. I'm an artist. It's hard for me. I'm an 80s baby. Grew up listening to hip hop in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I mean, 2000s wasn't too bad. But now it's like between the 20 to the 2020s, it's obvious
Yeah.
it's just gonna get worse. It's not getting better, which is why I would love for the goal is to be able to push music around that's more similar to ourselves. That's why I would love to be able to link with more people that's actually doing stuff for the conscious music community because we don't have enough platforms to really push our brands. Because the commercial music it's pretty much what's on the airways, then they're not really going to push a whole lot of conscious music anymore, especially when we talking Black Power and stuff. So it's definitely something that's been on my mind to like kind of get with other artists and maybe who are conscious and start this like conscious music coalition type of thing.
We got to do that. I'm thinking I've already been talking to Sonnet about this. I'm going to throw this out here. We're going to get to close this down, but consciousness label, HOK label, just throwing that out there. And definitely you are like, the royalty of the whole music scene. You just came in and you like kick the door in. You're like, excuse me, I'm Lady Kier. And now here's my husband with it's Afu Nation. Where is it at? Can you put in the is it in the chat? I'm gonna put the link.
Here I can hold on, let me
It's
I'm in
Afu
here.
Nation, right?
Yeah, it's Afu Nation.
Afu Nation.
Afu Nation. But I'm throwing it back here now.
And I'll summer jam it. So yes, and I love it. The music is so good. Sonnetter has so much, but as you see, even though I'm a singer, 4 years haven't had one song yet to be on there because I really haven't had any collaboration with any producers. You're the first person. I mean, of course, I did some stuff with Killer Priest and some of his people, but I'm saying in the HOK, now I can get a track and write to it and get something written and put up there, and it'll be nice. Did you put it in the chat?
put it in the back chat because for
Oh
some
no, put it on the.
what
Oh
hold on,
well,
let me
let me
go
get it.
on.
Let me get it off the private chat. I'll copy it.
Yeah.
Making things difficult for me. Just kidding. I'm joking. Wow, you were going in. You always have some jewels that you drop. So, oops, what'd I do? Did you leave? She must have left. All right. Peace and love to you. Love you very much. Thank you so much, Lady Kier. You're always so awesome when you come in. Thank you once again, family, for tuning in. Thank you, of course, last but not least, Ed Dodge. And Latoya, I love you. Gosh, I was looking for you. Give me a phone call. Oh, wait. You don't have my new phone number. I got to email it to you. Here she is. I was like, where'd you go?
Yeah, it ended up I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the our website link that I put in the back. So yeah,
I got
you
it up
can
here
go
on the
to and
screen.
find pretty much everything connected to Afro Nation through the website. But we are on all the platforms. It don't matter which one you go to, we are on all of them. But I will say we're definitely grateful for you guys' platform and for all the support that you have given us. We definitely can tell the difference, looking at our streams and things, it's easily noticed,
Yeah.
that, there's more coming in based on, the platform spinning it. And then people who have been, reaching out and letting us know they enjoy the music, based on hearing it on, Sonetter TV and stuff. So we're definitely grateful and appreciative. And like I said, he gonna get that track to you. I'm gonna have him send it today because I believe he's done with it. But I know he was just tweaking it some more the other day because I think he's probably changed that track probably about 3 or 4 different times.
Wow.
Like mixing, taking out different sounds and adding new ones and just playing with it. So that's why it took so long because I think he's trying to really send you a track that he know you'll like because we know you like that you rap and sing. So
I do.
yeah, and the track I think will give you opportunity to do a little of both if you want to on it. You
Okay.
can rap or sing, and it has different sounds. It sounds real angelic. It's a little sexy, but it's still hard at the same time. It has a little bit of
Oh,
all the components in it. It's a really dope track. Like
oh, I love
if
it.
he wasn't sending it to you, I'd do it myself.
I'm excited. And you know what? You still can use it. You know how they be doing, what was I going to say? Who does that? Puffy. He's having some problems.
Oh boy,
But
is he
what
having
was his
problems?
label called? I forgot. Bad Boy. They
Yeah,
were always using tracks over different songs.
right.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here, Shadrach Spencer. Thank you. He says, I love it. We love it too. Hybrid Cypher, I see
Thank
you.
you.
Peace and love. Always peace and love to my audience. I love you. Got to come over here more. Got to come over here more. But you know where the House of Consciousness is home.
Mm-hmm.
Peace and love, family.
Peace and
And
love.
we will see you tonight because I'm going to be sitting down with.
Definitely with Dr. Ali Muhammad. This is and what are y'all talking about now? What's
No,
going
I know I know you are my heart, but you're probably going to side with him. He's saying that the Bible was not written by anyone of indigenous of our people. It was only written by Europeans. And I
No,
know.
I wouldn't totally agree with that actually
Oh, okay, good.
because we know that these books have been put together from many different cultures. They
Yeah,
took holy scriptures from all kinds of different lands. So that wouldn't be totally accurate because the
awesome. So
Bible isn't one big book, it's multiple books.
it's
So
multiple books, and you're right. You just took one of my talking points that I'm ready in this that I have loaded in the silo. It's got ancient. I know Kemet is in there.
right.
So just that alone. With that said, peace to the darkest minds of the light. Peace to Lady Kier and her husband. What is your husband's name? We keep saying your husband.
Divine, but he actually goes by Afuma Keru.
Ooh, Afuma Keru.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, somebody else is Ma Keru.
Yeah, and that's what I said to my husband. I said, now you done let somebody else, because he like to stay in the background. I've been trying to get him to come to the forefront because if you think I got some stuff to say, y'all, he is way more well versed. He's actually very highly studied in
Oh,
comedic science and all of that. So I'm always trying to get him to actually come on and speak because he actually could really hold a conversation with you guys on a level that I couldn't because he has a lot of the academic knowledge that I don't behind a lot of this stuff.
wow,
So
he needs to come in. Is this how you spell it? Afuma Keru? Is that right or no?
Afu is correct. Ma is like Ma with 2 A's.
Two
MAA.
A's.
Yep. And then it's KHERU.
Afu, and then Ma, and then
Uh-huh.
another
Okay.
KHERU. Yep. There's the other half to the Afu Nation. So
Mhm.
I hear your babies in the background. They're so happy.
Mhm. And that kitchen, my daughter just been sitting at the table watching a little show on the tablet.
She
While she
sounds so happy. I
she
love
is.
that.
That's all they do is laugh and run through here.
Oh, and at that age, under age 5, you can never give too much attention. A lot of touching. I know you already. I can already tell you do this. A lot of touching, a lot of attention. 1,000 times, Mama, look, Daddy,
Mhm.
look. Always look.
I
Always.
definitely try to make sure I do it. I
Even
try to
when you
make
want to
sure
pull your hair out, like my
right.
son used to be. My son would be 3, but I'm like cooking or something. He's like, Mama, look. I'm like, what? But I don't do that. I don't make that face to him. Like my back is to him. But I'll
Right.
turn around like, yes, baby. It makes a big difference in the way
Right.
their minds develop.
And
So
you're right, it does. A
now you
smile
know
goes
the
a
ugly
long
face I
way.
just made, right? They're gonna screenshot that.
Lord. Well,
Oh
I'm gonna
well.
let you go. I know you got stuff to
Yes,
do and
peace.
whatnot, but I definitely have enjoyed the conversation today. And Mr. Edward Dodge, that was awesome. I look forward to it. Whenever I see you on, I try to catch it. I missed you last night because it was 1 a.m.
I know it's
here
okay.
when it came on. But
And I was
yeah.
falling asleep. Peace and love to you. And by the way, I
Peace
love
and
your
love.
dreads. No, not dreads. Your locks. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we will see you tonight. Peace, family.
All right. See you later.
All right, pieces.